Do more refugees mean more crime? That's what anti-immigrant politicians and far-right groups have been saying for years. And it turns out they might have a point. But hold on, before you start yelling at me, let me explain. A new government-commissioned study found that the violent crime rate in Germany did go up, and that rise was linked with an increase in refugees. That study was done by Germany's most prominent crime researcher, and it's making headlines.
Never before I had such an intense day of giving interviews. The interest was enormous.
The study focuses on the German state of Lower Saxony, which is fairly representative of Germany as a whole, during the peak of the so-called refugee crisis. Before the crisis, violent crime there had been decreasing, down more than 20% in 7 years. Then between 2014 and 2016, it spiked by about 10%, with nearly all of that increase due to refugees.
We had to admit the increase of violence which we had over the last 2 years in Germany is related to the refugees. That's a complicated situation.
So let's look at some of the factors behind this rise in violent crime. First, a large proportion of registered refugees in the state, 27%, are young, between 14 and 30 years old, and they're male. That's the demographic most likely to commit violent crime, no matter if you're a refugee or not. In fact, German men that same age commit nearly half of all violent crimes in Germany. Second, violent crimes are reported up to twice as often when they're committed by refugees versus locals. Third, many of those crimes were committed within the refugee community itself. In fact, only 9% of homicides or serious injuries were committed against Germans, but 70% of theft and nearly 60% of sex crimes targeted Germans.
There's a certain problem with the data on rape, because with rape, we have the largest difference in reporting. If the person who attacks you is a foreigner, his risk of being reported to the police is 44%. If the offender is German and the victim also German, the rate of reporting is only 18.
And finally, not all refugees behave the same way. The study found large regional differences in criminal behavior. North Africans from countries like Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco make up just 1% of the group, but committed 17% of violent crimes by refugees in the state. Meanwhile, people from Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan make up more than half the state's refugee population, but committed just 35% of the state's reported refugee crimes.
Those coming from Syria, from Afghanistan and Iraq learned immediately after arriving in Germany, you have a good chance to get asylum. Just the opposite happened to those who arrived from Northern African countries. They learned immediately after getting to Germany that they are not wanted here.
So what do we do with all this? The study gives some concrete solutions. Providing refugees with a daily structure like language courses, sports, or internship programs, reunifying families, bringing in the wives, siblings, and children of male refugees can help reduce tensions, and creating clear incentives to help refugees either integrate or go back to their home countries. Look, this isn't about fueling anti-refugee sentiment or about excusing anyone's criminal behavior. A study like this should serve as a fact-based foundation for a real discussion without stereotypes and without prejudice from the left or from the right.